BBC Sounds.
BBC Radio Scotland.
Just gone 25 to 9 and you're tuned to Good Morning Scotland with Gary and Laura. Now, it's not just policies which are under the microscope in the fight for number 10. Personalities too come under scrutiny, perhaps none more so than on tonight's ITV debate. It'll see Prime Minister Rishi Sunak go head-to-head with Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer in the first UK-wide televised debate. But do voters care about the person behind the political veneer? Well, let's talk to Dr. Rachael Molitor, who's a psychologist at Coventry University. Good morning to you, Dr. Molitor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
People often say it should always be about policy and not about personality. Is that ever the case?
It absolutely should be about policy and not about personality, but that isn't the way the world is working. And actually, we do have these two leaders who are there. We've got these people who are trying to get out their thoughts, their feelings. They're trying to almost be the people on the pedestal that are saying, this is what my part with me as the leader, which I think is really fascinating. It's becoming a bit more of a sort of presidential style to what we've had previously. I think Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak together. Today we're going to see the big debate live, and we're going to see them trying to be able to battle it out to each other. But it is very much more focusing on their personalities and who they are as a person and people and how they represent.
Oh, I think we might have lost Rachael there. The line was coming and going. Rachel, are you still there?
I am still here.
Yes. Sorry. Well, the line was just coming and going there.
So sorry.
Both men are said to like their detail. We know Sir Keir Starmer is a lawyer, and that was his trade before he went into politics. Rishi Sunak, obviously a banker, and likes his numbers. They both like details. Is that a similarity between both men in terms of personality traits?
I think it is. I think they're both seen as leaders. So I think it's really interesting. They're both very business orientated. And I think seeing how they can really start to deliver within their parties, how they can lead people is so very interesting. And that is something which we like to see as a personality trait when it comes to leaders.
I'm just going because it's one of these things that we should like that, but actually it can leave both of them sometimes appearing a bit dry and dull, for want of a better word.
You're absolutely correct. And when we are looking at personality types, actually what we see as the voters, we want to see people who are actually more like ourselves. So the whole idea of looking for ideal personality traits that we want to see people who are familiar with us, who have sort of similar stories to us. We want to see people who are very much focused around what we do and understanding the population. So having someone on a pedestal who may say, well, I have this amazing, massive business and such, doesn't actually necessarily work with the sort of general population. So we do, however, want to look for leaders. There are particular personality traits, as we were discussing, ones such as people who are conscientious, so being reliable, being goal-orientated. We wouldn't want someone leading the country who doesn't have any goals and ideas and attention to detail. But then saying that, we want people who are empathetic, who do understand the current cost of living crisis, do understand the challenges we have with the NHS. It's that personality trait. We want someone who could lead, but also someone who can understand as well.
Yeah, you say we want to see people who sort of are like us, which is, I suppose, difficult for both of the people who want to be the next Prime Minister, because obviously Rishi Sunak is a billionaire businessman and Sir Keir Starmer is a knight of the realm.
Yes, absolutely. So it is quite difficult for them to be able to really identify with some of the problems that say are down here on the ground. But actually, when you hear some of the stories they are discussing, they always relate back to friends or family members who've been through similar things. So in a way, trying to create that link between I say an us and them, and it's seen very much within this cognitive bias. And I think it's very, very interesting when it comes to the voting. So we have something called affinity bias, which basically means we as the people like to be able to favour people that are seen similar to ourselves. So by giving these stories and these ideas of what friends and family have done, actually then makes us then link back to these shared backgrounds and interests and think, well, actually, I want to vote for them because they're similar to me, or they believe in what I believe in. And I think we tend to seek out that information with someone we necessarily may prefer to vote for and forget about the other things that may not be so positive.
I wonder how much appearance. I mean, we heard there from the former Scottish Secretary, Jim Murphy, who says that actually what everybody needs to remember, the politicians need to remember, is that this is a TV show. And I wonder how much appearance plays a part in how we react to them. We can sort of see Keir Starmer takes his tie off and rolls up his sleeves when he's out in working men's clubs. Rishi Sunak's out in his trainers all the time, you know.
It is, absolutely. And there's a really interesting area, and I find this area of psychology fascinating. It's something called the halo effect, and it is another cognitive bias that we see, whereas we see a positive quality in someone, whether it be something a stereotypical, relatively good-looking person, or someone who dresses in a particular way. And we have seen it probably, I believe it was last year, when there was sort of jibes about how the politicians looked, their particular weight, how they were dressed. And actually this halo effect that we see, if we see someone who is appealing as a leader, whether it be through their positive sort of look or how they dress, we then influence our perceptions of how we then believe they may act in future. So dressing well, looking well, actually makes us, through this sort of unconscious bias, makes us then think, well, actually, if they dress well and look well, they must be able to do what they're saying, because we trust them. We're more amenable to them.
Are we all that shallow? This seems to reflect very badly on us, that we're making decisions based on how they're dressed and whether they're handsome or not. I mean, I know this is, it's subconscious, but are we that shallow?
We're not, but we do have this first impression. It is really, really difficult to be able to change it. And with this idea of the halo effect, which I think is fascinating, when we see someone in the street, we do make these first impressions, how someone may be dressed, how someone may look. And it is that first impression. It's about 1/10 of a second we take to make it. And yes, it can be a challenge to then change that impression afterwards. I'm not saying that we don't change that impression, but it is normally that first look, that first impression we have, and then we then go on. But then we can then look at the positive influence they may have. But it is a real challenge, because we use the stimuli around us. So how someone may present themselves is the first thing we see before they even open their mouths and say something. And if they are more stereotypically, whether it be better looking or better dressed, unfortunately that does, it is the first impression. It does create that precedent before they actually start speaking and what they have to say and whether we trust them.
Rachael, thank you for that insight. Dr. Rachael Molitor there, who's a psychologist at Coventry University. You can bet your bottom dollar that they will be groomed to within an inch of their life.